well, April and May, and that is kind of off the table. So if each of those 20,000 kids, paying $5 up really fast, really quickly. So, hey, Dave.
How you doing?
Good. Thanks for jumping on here. Just real quick, I'll get David up to speak.
Sure. Go ahead.
Is if you guys are not talking, if you guys could mute your microphone, because the software that we have will jump. Say Cody's presenting and David, you cough. The camera will change to you and not come back to Cody. So when I'm introducing you guys and kind of catching everybody up to speed with everything, I'm going to turn my microphone off. It's basically you're only going to see basically me and Cody. The students usually do not have their cameras running or their mics on during the presentation, just so it's telling Cody it's like Brady Bunch with 30 kids. And so we try to keep that a little streamlined for you guys, because it does get distracting. And then what they will do, if you scroll down to the bottom where you jiggle your mouse, there's a chat bubble. They can enter questions there. Sometimes they send them to me directly, and then I'll kind of edit them and send them over. But I was telling Cody, if you guys want to answer them, they come in, or as you or wait until the very end, you can do that as well.
I would think, so are they pretty in tune? I mean, they stay up with it, or is it they just kind of, drown out and at the end ask a few questions? Will they be interactive for the most part?
They usually pay attention. I can't, there's no way for me to tell, but they will.
Right.
I can check in. I can check in and say, turn on your chat bubble. But it's kind of one of those things that we're learning as we go, how to best interact with them.
Okay.
It's definitely not like in a classroom where you can see somebody nodding off. So I start to tend at them if they start falling asleep on me.
Got it.
Yeah, we were talking about, we had Press Hall of Fame on Tuesday, and they were talking about how they had to reconfigure everything. I'm assuming, you guys are a little bit with the fact that it's a construction, and I'm in an area where they're building a number of houses, and it's like no interruption for them, at least on the surface. And so I don't know if you guys were operating business as usual with different your safety protocols a little bit, or how that was going on.
Yeah, that's where we're at. It's certainly not business as usual. We're trying to maintain an atmosphere of providing a safe work environment for folks. We haven't seen a tremendous amount of impact as of yet, but we're starting to see things trickle in, and I'm sure there's going to be more of it over time. But we won't get too much into those particulars. But we have seen that. And it's trying to change the mindset of guys that have been in the trades for so long, of working in teams and working with a partner. We've been stressing that over the past couple of years more and more, to make sure you're looking out for each other, and you're there working in teams. And now we're saying the opposite. Overnight, we're saying, hey, try to stay as far away from people as you can. There's some tasks that you can't physically do that. So that presents a challenge. We've done a bunch of other things to try to create a safe, clean environment, but it's a dirty business, so that's a challenge.
I can imagine the supplies are probably there, and they'll probably start to trickle, slow down, and just availability of all that.
Yeah, there's no telling. That when people are saying, hey, there could be an impact, but as of right now, they don't see it. We did have some, a plant that's supplying us quarantine itself for 2 weeks on some pretty critical materials that we're getting from them. So we'll see how that goes. We just got the information this morning or late last night. And even from last night to this morning, it changed. It was, hey, we're going to stop our second shift. Now we're going to stop our operations. So it's very, very fluid. So and it's hard to plan for that. We're planners by nature. When you don't have the information, it makes it tough. It makes it tough to come up with a game plan. So we're going to keep pushing forward as best we can, and then when we get information enough to make a decision or make an adjustment, that's how we'll proceed.
Yeah, I can't imagine all the stuff that goes into it. I have to worry about 100 students, 150 students. I can't imagine all the stuff that you guys have to go through. Same with Cody. When you get the season up and running, and how do you start, stop, all the different things that you got to do to get players back in shape, players back in town, medically ready, and all the stuff that you need to do, and then the stadium wise, just again everything that goes, and hope that your experts and your trained staff, your tradesmen that are professional on the level, how do they are they able to stay healthy and available?
Yep.
A lot of moving parts. Yeah. All right. So what I'll do is, as I start, we got about a third of the class in there right now. I'll stall a little bit. I'll go probably 3 or 4 minutes and ramble on a little bit to talk about what I need from them in the class, and then I'll introduce you guys moving forward, and then kind of turn it over to Cody. I think he's going to run it for a little bit, and then turn it over to you, and then we'll do a little Q&A afterward. Say the one I did on Tuesday with the Reds Hall of Fame, my wife and I, our daughter, she's 23 months old, and goes down for a nap at 1, so I'd come down here early, and my wife usually doesn't put her down for her nap time, and so the entire class session, she was screaming her head off. So I was able to get her down early enough today, so she's asleep, but no one else could hear it except for me. I mean, she is just belting it. And so I'm glad not to have that distraction today. That makes it a little bit easier, other than my cat keeps jumping up in my lap. She doesn't know quite what to do with everybody being home. So anyway, all right, Hassan, you on from Egypt? How's everything over there?
Things are great.
A lot better than the weekend?
Yes.
What time is it in Egypt right now?
It's 8 o'clock.
PM?
PM, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that's not as late as I thought. Okay. I felt bad. I didn't want to do the math and see if it was like 2 or 3 in the morning. So 8 o'clock's not bad. All right,
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Well, good to hear from
But
you.
my 6 p.m. class is not that good.
Yeah, I
It's
can
12
imagine.
a.m. here. Yeah.
I can imagine. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. Again, today we have a great opportunity with FC Cincinnati and Turner Construction jumping online for us. Obviously, as always, kind of tweaking everything to make sure we get it as best as possible. But I did want to do some housekeeping real quick, and I think Cody, I kicked you off real quick, so you'll have to share again. But for this week, obviously, we got FC Cincinnati and Turner. Not recorded. So again, everything that you're hearing, you need to take your notes to make sure you have everything you need. I would like for each team captain to, you can either email me the question now, or you can shoot it over in the chat bubble, or WebEx. That would be fine. For next week, Tuesday, I'll update you what we're doing with Paul Brown. I have a phone call with their staff at 3:30 today. We'll get them lined up. Interestingly enough, I can actually go there and take the tour myself. I don't know how I'll figure out if that's something what I end up doing. But either way, we're good to go with Paul Brown. Just a matter of we're going to do a tour. We're just going to have a guest speaker. So what I need from you guys by Monday night, early Tuesday morning, if you could email me one question from each of your teams. That way we're all set. And then we'll start our team meetings next Thursday. So that, again, you've already been pre-assigned your 10-minute slot for Thursday, April 9th. So again, jump on WebEx. I'll have my room open much as I have now, and you guys can jump in and talk. And then if for some reason we don't get everything done in that 10 minutes, I've set aside time after from 3:15 to 4 o'clock with you guys, or time whenever you need that works with your schedule. Certainly let me know. I can meet with you guys individually, online. We can do any sort of things moving forward. And then the next week, so the week of the 14th and the 16th, still have Moats lined up. I'm going to talk with them. They're meeting today. We're trying to figure out something interesting, figure out how to connect with you guys on talking about turf management, and then we'll move into, after that, we'll do our team meetings and get you guys all set for the rest of the semester, okay? Again, as always, keep me posted with everything going on. I'm going to stop sharing now, so Cody, you can go ahead and do that. All right, and you said, let's see, Javon, are you still not hearing anything? All right, having one student with technical difficulties, Cody.
Okay, no problem.
I think he looks like he's accessing on his phone. Okay, he's on his phone, so he's hearing. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Okay. Thanks, Javon. All right, so today, as we mentioned, certainly trying to get everything lined up and get all the loose ends tied up was a challenge for all three of us. And so, but it all came together. Probably one of the easier things they've had to deal with, given everything that's happened over the last few weeks. And so I think we have a great opportunity today to bring in an FC Cincinnati. We have Cody Parsons, who's the Chief of Staff, and we have Dave Bereswell. Dave, what's your actual title there with Turner?
The project manager for the FC Stadium construction.
So he's the guy, basically. So you have the two people really in tune with both the organizational component as well as the architectural and construction component. And so I think we're going to get a full, well-rounded vision of what it means to build a stadium from an organizational perspective, as well as our architectural engineering and construction perspective as well. And the fact that it's 10 minutes away from campus, I think that's certainly a great opportunity. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Cody and let you run with it.
Sure. Well, Jay and everyone else, thank you for having me. I appreciate the time today, and certainly excited to talk about FC Cincinnati and the Weston Stadium. It's a cool project we have going on. It's interesting times now that we have the coronavirus going on, but we're still moving forward. So, by way of a little bit of an introduction, my name is Cody Parsons. I serve as the Chief of Staff at FC Cincinnati. I graduated from Dayton, so in the region, studying economics. I've been at FCC for about 5 years now. I was employee number 4 back in the summer of 2015 before we launched as USL team. Began work on just kind of in operations with player contracts, travel logistics, overall team administration, and then grew into a more special projects role with our president, our ownership group, which really started with and was most notably with the MLS expansion application process and everything that went into that, starting at the very beginning from business planning in the stadium, training facility, and the past 2.5 years working in the chief of staff capacity, focus on all things Weston Stadium, MLS transition, and this really strategic business growth period as we've gone from a quick scale up of 30 people in May of 2018 to 100 people. And so before I talk about the stadium and get into all the exciting things that this is, I was going to provide a little bit of background on FC Cincinnati for those that weren't familiar, or just as a reminder. So we'll see how good the video quality is and audio. It sounded apparently a little bit like ham radio, but we'll go with what we do. quite sure what that looked like on y'all's side or sounded like on y'all's side, but FC Cincinnati today, how we got here, we started as second division team in 2016. So basically think of AAA baseball, starting at that level. Played for 3 years at that level. But our goal since day one, since we founded summer of 2015, was to be a Major League Soccer franchise, to be a Major League Soccer club, and to bring the third professional sport to this community, third Major League sport to this community. And so we are playing our first 2 years at Nippert Stadium, there on the campus of the University of Cincinnati, before moving into our new home at the West End Stadium. And, the goal for the new stadium and, the reason why is because that's something that MLS really finds valuable. It's something that they put priority on, is being able to control your own schedule, because their long-term longevity as a league and sustainability is through media rights. And so being able to have a soccer-specific stadium that you can, play at any time and you're not scheduling out other people is really of utmost importance to them. So that's kind of why we made the decision to invest in a new stadium and build something new, despite all the great success, good home that we have there in the stadium. So the biggest challenge by far was where to put it. MLS is again obsessed with soccer-specific stadiums. There's been 20 built in the last decade and a half, and it was really the center point of the expansion application. We had a lot of good work through our fan base, and made ourselves almost an organization in the city that they couldn't say no to. But the stadium was still the biggest tripping point and most important point. And ultimately, we're an event-based business. I mentioned to Jay beforehand. Right now, we're kind of like a ski resort that doesn't have any snow. We have to have events to have our business, to have our content. So the stadium is obviously the epicenter. So as we went through the expansion process, we narrowed it down to 3 sites. As some of you may remember, if you're locally, which is about 10 minutes north of downtown, northern Kentucky, right across from the Red Stadium on the side of the river. And then ultimately where we ended up, over the Rhine, the West End neighborhood in downtown Cincinnati. And it was a very prolonged process with a lot of political maneuvering and many other challenges. But ultimately we got to a position where we were able to obtain the Over the Rhine and West End site. It's a site that the MLS loved. The direct quote from Commissioner Garber was, "Over the Rhine is the Brooklyn of Cincinnati." And so it was painstaking, but it was ultimately worth it. And where we're under construction now, ahead of opening in spring of next year. And so looking at what it used to look like, this is the original stadium site. To help orient the class, this is Liberty. This is Central Parkway, right here. I'm on screen. Liberty is right here. Central Parkway is right here. And then Music Hall is like right off the screen over here. And the northern parts of Over the Rhine are just south of the screen. So the site used to be Taft High school football field, along with the parking lot and a few other ancillary businesses that made it difficult to obtain all the land. That was certainly one of the more challenging. So, getting to the site was the biggest challenge. It was a great opportunity, though. It's across the street from Over the Rhine, which is the largest historic district in the United States, as I'm sure many of you know. And it has, just unbelievable bones. And going off the energy of the last 10 years with what 3CDC and the city and other private developers have done for the area. It also comes with its challenges being in the West End. There's a lot of historical tension in that neighborhood. What happened 60, 70 years ago with I-75, which tore apart the original West End neighborhood and separated Union Terminal from the rest of the neighborhood. And that is, those are conditions that we had to live with, and we kind of assumed, even though it wasn't through our own doing. And so we had immense challenges as it relates to zoning and light and sound, traffic patterns. And, there's great things about going into an urban environment, but there's also enormous detriments where we're putting in a massive Wrigley Stadium type into an existing neighborhood rather than it growing organically together. So we had negotiations and difficulties with the ballet, with Music Hall. We had to work with CPS because we were taking Taft High School's football field, so we had to relocate and build a new one. We had to deal with CPD because we were taking part of their. We were also taking on or acquiring private businesses, private land. So we were dealing with 20 different parties to acquire all the different parcels to get the necessary mass of about 12 acres to build the site. Additionally, we also had to get land for a parking garage to help service all the fans that we're trying to generate to the area. And so all those things were enormously complicated, fraught with public attention, political dynamics, which made it a very difficult situation. But again, it's hopefully for the best case long-term outcome. So we also had to deal most notably with the people. And it was great to be inclusive, and it was great to do what we think is a great opportunity for the neighborhood, but we certainly have our detractors. The post here in yellow is a fake eviction notice that was spread around to all the residents nearby our stadium, saying that we were going to be evicting them out of their homes for the site. We didn't take any residential properties. We have yet to take any residential properties specifically for the stadium site, and but there was false narratives out there that were, for whatever reason, detractors for FC Cincinnati. We had people that they didn't want it in their backyard. They didn't want anybody else to be coming in and changing their neighborhood. It was for the better. And we also have requests of trying to patch long-standing neighborhood issues into our project, where there's traffic lights 5 blocks away. Well, FC Cincinnati's new stadium is going to affect the traffic lights, so they have to pay $100,000 to fix these traffic lights that are quite literally 5, 6, 7 blocks away from the stadium. So battling through a lot of the bureaucracy, a lot of political agendas, a lot of personal agendas, both very legitimate concerns and maybe some less legitimate concerns, made it a very difficult exercise, and it's something that is ongoing. One good thing that's come out of it is we have a West End Community Benefits Agreement where for the lifetime that we're in the stadium, we're doing at least $100,000 worth of community work, specifically in the neighborhood. It's not over the Rhine, it's not in downtown, it is in the neighborhood that we are coming to. And that doesn't start next year when we open the stadium. It started in 2019. It starts when we selected the site, we immediately became a long-term neighbor in that community. So we have already begun that work, and it's something that is, we think has really helped us ingrain ourselves into that neighborhood and into that community. So here's a couple of the problems. I had mentioned, dealing with CPD, but we're also and the school district. We also had to work with the city. There's a lot of infrastructure and power and water and utilities. We go into it working with the county. It's a parking garage. The Port Authority technically owns the stadium, so that's another party. And when you get all these people in a room, it's tough to keep everyone on the same page at all times. People management's difficult, but it's the necessary exercise to make the job possible. Just to kind of as an example that we laugh about sometimes, painfully laugh about, is we relocated and had an obligation to replace 3 separate churches as part of this process because of the land we had to acquire. And then this just talks about our foundation work that we've already begun, and then also our CBA that is already started last year, has aspects that involve the job directly that Dave can touch on, associated with training and helping the neighborhood become employed not only on the job but on a longer term basis. But then most notably over the duration of the stadium in the day-to-day life. So lessons learned. This could probably be about 10 more slides, but I tried to summarize it here a little bit more succinctly. And the most important thing, as always, and this is not specific to this job or even our business, is get the right people on the bus. You have to have the right experts in the right areas. And then real estate, which is ultimately what the stadium is, you have to have a team of independent experts. When it comes to legal teams and real estate expertise and property managers and construction managers, there's many different silos, and there's no one size fits all. So really getting the right people on the bus was a massive opportunity opportunity for us and a massive win as we have acquired the right people around us in these specialty areas. Being very proactive and not trying to be defensive about it, engaging the community, being open, engaging with the media. We really felt that led to buy-in quicker than it otherwise would, where rather than trying to do things in the dark. And even though we still get criticized for that, we think our ability to be very inclusive, and to this day we still meet with the Weston Community Council on a monthly basis to talk about construction updates, talk about the stadium design, address concerns directly. It's not hiding behind anything, but it's us directly talking to our members. We think it's been really helpful, and incorporating their feedback into the community and being mindful of that at all times. So now that we talked about all the sausage making until we get there, I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're actually building, and everything that we get to be excited about and actually get to walk into here next year. So the number one thing that we talked about, and as our guideposts, starting 2 years ago and up until this day, and will continue after we open the building, is our stadium priorities. It's the real pillars of what we do and kind of the core values if you think of the stadium as a business. And two things we talk about is fan experience and monetizing the building. This is a privately financed building where our owners are coming out of pocket for every dime with the stadium site. So monetizing this over a long term is the number one priority for us as an organization. So we're generating revenue, making returns for our owners, and making their investment worthwhile. And then fan experience, FC Cincinnati's calling card, our hallmark in this community is about the atmosphere, the energy, the experience of the environment. And so really designing a stadium around that to amplify that, so we have a long term for what it is, a competitive advantage, but also something that we think helps us be sustainable and provide a good asset to the community. And that goes into the details of, I've had detailed conversations with our supporters council about exactly what row drum platform the new Bailey should be. There was an audio engineer in one of our supporter groups that was looking at where the optimal location was as it relates to the roof and to the field, all thinking about how do we make noise, how do we provide a good atmosphere. So the MLS structure, MLS is unique in a certain capacity where it doesn't penalize small markets. It's not like baseball, it's not like NFL to a certain extent where if you're a small market team, you're always fighting on the bill. MLS is very parity driven, and it's very socialist to a certain extent in that regard, where you're really rewarded for excellent execution versus being in a large market. So executing with excellence in your own stadium in a smaller market is actually puts you in a better position than being at Yankee Stadium in New York, or being in LA, or being in one of the big markets. Two of the real notable franchises, notable clubs in the league are Kansas City and Portland. Those are two organizations that we look at along with Minnesota, since they just built a new stadium. We really see as our peers in the league. They're in smaller markets, fighting within their market, but they also have the ability to be one of the top brands, one of the top things to do in their local market, and be at the top of the league because of that execution. And so we're really focused on the state that funnels into our stadium design when we think about local revenue, because 95% of all revenue in MLS is locally generated. There's not a large national TV rights deal, but to put it in perspective, MLS as a league, it's $90 million a year in TV revenue. Each NFL team is over 200 per year in TV revenue. So that discrepancy really puts a premium on how you generate revenue. And so that goes into how we design the building, where we have 50 suites, we have 4,500 club seats, both of which are by far the most in the league for soccer-specific stadiums. And we're also able to do that to a certain extent because we're a smaller market. We're in LA and we're just the 11th professional sports team. That limits our ability because of the saturation in the market. Being in a smaller market actually helps us to that extent because there's a little bit less competition and less saturation, and we can rise to be one of the top brands in the city. So that helps us with on-field performance and being a winning brand. And that all funnels back to the design ethos of the stadium. It also allows us to make, or helps motivate us to make investments like putting the vertical fins on the side of the stadium, where we can generate additional ad revenue and create intrinsic value with a real place to be. And then ultimately fan experience, touching on this again because it is so important. Everything we're doing as it relates to not just within the stadium, but how do you get there? What roadway improvements where are we putting the county garage? What ancillary parking avenues are we going to have? Fan experience doesn't start when you get in the stadium. It starts when you leave your house. So all design elements, both inside the bowl, but then also reaching out into the surrounding neighborhood are elements that we're thinking about as it relates to stadium design and ultimately preparing for a long-term future starting next year. So just a couple quick facts regarding the stadium. $250 million, all privately financed, as I mentioned. The primary entrance is here. This is catty corner from Music Hall, Central Parkway. It's a grand stair that we took off from the New York Public Library, the Spanish Steps in Rome, making it a public gathering space. About where 2/3 of the fans will be coming in on game days, about 15,000. So we made it extra wide to not creating a pinch point, making sure that, again, back to the fan experience, that even getting into the stadium, you're not claustrophobic. It's something that is a little bit more of a public park feel rather than just a shoe to get into the stadium. We're going to have the largest team store in the league. We've been very lucky with our merchandise sales and brand that we've been able to create in the market. And so we're going to have an 8,000 square foot store in the stadium once it opens. We have the 513 vertical fins you can see here, part of the daylight image, which illuminate at nighttime. Dave and I were actually up in Green Bay a month ago today, March 2nd. The world was a very different place to see the construction and to get a sneak peek of them. It was exciting to see the scale. And it's something that I have a video on in a little bit that shows the real differentiation for our stadium as it relates to stadiums in this country and stadiums all over the world. And then a real cool feature that we highlight a lot is that every seat in the entire stadium is covered, which creates a really intimate environment, keeps the noise in, and also protects fans from the elements. So talking about the neighborhood, the neighborhood's important to us. I touched on that at the beginning. The design direction we gave the architects at the beginning of the process is we didn't want this stadium to be like landing a spaceship from outer space. We didn't want it to put up walls around the neighborhood. We wanted it to be the front porch of the neighborhood. We wanted to recreate the feeling that a kid gets walking by Wrigley where they can see through the fence and see a little bit of grass. We wanted to recreate that element within our own urban environment, our own neighborhood and community. And so that's where they came up with the fin design, where you're looking straight on, you can see into the stadium. But when you're looking down the side, it looks like a solid wall, solid surface. So that contrast was their architectural and design answer, which is way above me and just a finance guy. Their creative answer to how to incorporate that ethos and direction that we wanted to have as part of our stadium. I didn't know that was there. And then quickly on the interior, so we have 4,500 club seats, both on the west side and the lower east side over here. 54 suites, again the most in the league, both that's one level above the concourse, 2 levels above the concourse. And then we also have, as a real feature, a 3,100 capacity Bailey, which is right here on the north side. It's at 34 degrees. We paid a little bit of a premium. I think it was like $2 million now that thinking back to the decision, to make it a steeper rake right here. So that way the fans are closer to the field, creates a more intimidating environment. But again, that's something that's important to us, and as we make strategic trade-offs, those types of things, even though it's not necessarily monetizing, it does help towards the fan experience and the long-term environment of the stadium. And then these are a couple overlays that we use to kind of help educate on what makes our stadium a little bit different, and how we're talking about fan experience and intimate environment. Because, and as I'll show at the end, our MLS demographics and FC Cincinnati's demographics are skewed younger. We're the youngest fan of any of the major 5 sports, and with that, people kind of crave experiences and environments versus kind of a monolithic 80,000 seat type stadium. It's a very experience-based seeking from our fan base. And so with that, we really try to emphasize and educate that as we transition from Nippert into the new stadium. So Nippert Stadium is here in red. The new stadium, the West End Stadium, is in black. So this is an architectural cross-section. And the real talking points here are, one, the roof, which kind of shows the intimate environment versus Nippert, where it's more open air. And also that if you're at a suite at Nippert Stadium, you're actually above the roof line of the new stadium. And the first level of suites at Nippert Stadium are at the same level as the concourse, if you're at a suite at the new stadium, you're at the same level of concourse as Nippert Stadium. So that just kind of brings everything a little bit closer together while still having the same attendance or similar capacities. It is. So then it gets a little bit more dramatic as we look at some of the other venues here in Market. So this is against Great American Ballpark, the Reds, down on the banks. So again, it shows a little bit more of the steeper rate closer to the field. Again, West End Stadium here in black versus Great American Ballpark here in red. And then most dramatic of all would be Paul Brown Stadium. Paul Brown in orange, West End Stadium in black. Now, obviously, West End Stadium has 40,000 less seats, so we're certainly not blind to that. But that goes back to our priority of it's about the good fan experience. And so we would rather sell out every game at 26,000 versus have a 46,000 seat stadium and only have it sold out 1 out of every 3 games or 1 out of every 4 games, whatever. It's more important for us to have that great environment time and time again versus on a more basis. So then this is the lighting company that's having world-class lights that'll really differentiate our stadium and really make it noteworthy in Cincinnati.
Cody, what was the name of that lighting organization you had?
I'm sorry?
What was the name of this company? Is it SACO?
SACO. SACO.
Thanks.
So then this is a couple of examples of what it's going to look like here in a year or so. A little bit of a sneak peek for what we're building and how it can really be different. We're building something that's bigger than ourselves, and ultimately this is a community asset. Our ownership has a generational approach, and this is a legacy investment. So these types of things, while there's certainly a monetization side with sponsorship and whatnot, there's also part of it of a legacy play, not for themselves, but for the city of Cincinnati. We're very fortunate to have that kind of ownership group that's willing to leave that kind of landmark in our community. So quickly talking about budget and how we came up with it. These are the 5 most recent MLS venues. Looking at it on a per seat basis, which is a little bit of the closest kind of standard measurement. There's a lot of noise in all these numbers. For instance, DC United had enormous power supply issues where they had to build around a huge generator, which doubled the cost of their stadium, but it makes it look like they have a very expensive first-class stadium. Which, there's a lot of noise in there. So, and budget is where I annoy everybody because I come in and slash costs and don't get too extravagant. But our goal is, to outclass a little bit Orlando and San Jose, and try to attain the same level of quality as Minnesota United, which is a like market and a bit of an organizational peer, as I mentioned earlier. Albeit with a few more seats, just given the robust fan base that we've been fortunate to generate and hopefully continue to have year over year. And then ultimately, who are we building it for? I touched on this a little bit earlier about less fan demographics. And, this also funnels into the stadium design, where fans are younger, so we're focused on being a little bit tech forward, making sure we have enough cell coverage, Wi-Fi entry points, that we can host other events so people can have happy hours on game days, have weddings and events in all of our premium spaces. It makes us focus on the food and beverage experience, where it's not just Bud Light everywhere, but it's many types of craft beer that Cincinnati is very proud of. Focusing on all of our F&B partners, where it really aligns with ultimately who we're building it for, who we're building this asset for, which is kind of at the end of the day what the stadium is. As I mentioned, MLS is the youngest demographic in professional sports. For SC Cincinnati specifically, our average age is 38 or 39. About half of all of our fans have young kids, either 1 or 2. And they're generally college educated, and this is a family event. And we're certainly fans and whatnot, but we're also looking for a family experience. And so, one of the reasons we went to 26,000 seats is we wanted to make sure that, while yes, there's great premium seats for the high level of customers, we're still maintaining our price point, our lower price points, our family friendly price point. And so, our lowest price point at the new stadium would be $20 a game, which is only $5 more than the current lowest price point of $15. So that's an important part for us to always maintain. One of our real building blocks has been being a family-friendly brand. So even though we have top-tier pricing, it's important for us to maintain that entry level, which is reflecting the partner interface. And then ultimately, it's a global sport. So when we put fancy Seiko lights and spend a bit of a premium to do it, it's being seen in 170 countries. So it's not just Cincinnati that feels good about themselves; it's the world that looks and sees what's going on in Cincinnati. So when there's a generational view from our ownership group, it's not just about within our own community; it's about broadcasting it to the world. One thing we say within the team is that sports teams have the power to really unify a community and on a national scale and change the perception. Cleveland feels a little bit better about themselves after LeBron won a title, because the rest of the world views Cleveland as a city of championship city. And so we look to take the same approach here in Cincinnati, and we look forward to that obligation. And the most visible part of that is the stadium. So I'll now turn it over to Dave Bearswell at Turner, who's we showed all the pretty pictures and put up all the money. Now he has to actually do all the work.
Thank you, Cody. There are some questions that popped up. Do you want to just have me run through my piece and then we can go through the questions, or did you want to address a couple of those before I start?
I need to figure out how to address them, so I'll let you go.
Okay. All right. So Cody focused a lot on the sports side of the stadium. I'll give you a little bit of my background. I started out at the University of Dayton for 2 years in the engineering program. Then I switched to University of Cincinnati and have a civil engineering degree from UC. I've been with Turner Construction for about 17 years, serving on lots of different roles, different projects. Most recently was the project manager at the Leonard College of Business that we finished up last year on campus. So then came down here. So I'll give a little bit more of the construction perspective of things. I'll try to touch on a few other things, but walk you through the construction side. This project's pretty unique in the sense that early on there was a switch, an architect switch early on. So the team had started with Mies and decided that wanted to kind of switch gears a little bit and brought Populous on. So Populous is now the architect of record. So that presented some challenges for us because we had started putting some foundations in the ground, and Populous had some changes to the design of the building to get us where we are today. So that was unique for us to accommodate those changes and keep things moving forward. So that I think we started here in December of 18 with some of the land acquisition, demolition, and clearing activities. We had some utilities relocate, but not all utilities were relocated, and I'll get to that in a second. And then we got started with auger cast piles in April of last year, so we were going with foundations when the change was made. So that's been unique for us to continue to move forward and work through that. I noted too, another challenge was there is and Cody mentioned DC United, their cost per square foot. We actually did that project as well. And they have a underground electric utility that runs, comes in basically the southeast corner of that stadium and then exits out the east. So they built a stadium on top of it. But when you do that, the utility requires that you have an easement that they can access, maintain, in the event of an outage, that they can get into the stadium, tear up whatever they need to get to that utility. And in DC, it was very problematic just because of how it ran. Now we have a very similar challenge here. We've got a 138 kilovolt line that runs underneath the pitch, just on the east side of the pitch. So constructing the stadium around that has been a bit of an interesting piece. The foundations were laid out to obviously miss that. We protected that line throughout construction, and as we move forward, the design will allow for utility vehicles to get into the stadium to access that easement should they need to. So that's ours is straight through the stadium, so that's why the financial impact was not as great as what DC United saw. Ours was a 90-degree turn and made it pretty challenging. They also had some additional soil to mitigate there. So those are some of the challenges here. We've also had obviously recently, as Cody mentioned a month ago, we were in Green Bay and looking at things, and the world's changed quite a bit in a month, and we're still learning what that means for us in the field. We've adapted our procedures in the field to try to keep our workers safe, to keep things moving forward. It's been interesting, and every day it changes a little bit. We learn a little bit more, and we try to implement what we can to keep things moving safely. But I'm sure that's going to give us a lot more opportunity to come up with some unique ways to attack some of the challenges that we're going to face here in the next few months. Cody mentioned too the community benefits agreement, and there was a question on here. That's been something that's been a little different. I wouldn't say it's on most projects. We come in and we build the project, work early on with the design team to try to keep the budgeting under control, build a project, and have a ribbon cutting, turn it over. We when we're on campuses, we participate in different things on campus. We'll have a construction group say, hey, can we give a tour? We'll have classes like this from time to time. But the way we've interacted with the community here has been unique and something that we don't typically do. It's something that we've reached out to. We've had our folks. One of the things that part of the CBA was a cornerstone construction training class. So the club has set up a interactive training class at CityLink down the street to try to attract local residents into the construction workforce. And it's been pretty successful, but that's one where we participate very heavily. We've had 3 or 4 of those, and we're going to have another 3 or 4 of the next year. And that construction training course has a curriculum where folks come in and they go through and learn how to use tools and learn different things. And we participate in that pretty heavily. We do a job tour with those folks at their graduation. We set up interviews to try to get them positions within the firms that are working on the project. And what we've seen is that other firms that are interested as well. And I think that's really the lasting foothold, is that the construction of this stadium is a 20, 24, 26-month process. But to impact the community, to give skills and tools, to get careers that are going to carry on long after stadium construction is something that is definitely I think of something that's come out of this that has been very positive for the community. We also have, but I think sometimes that's a challenge though too, because you have an understanding from the community that, okay, there's a construction job, I'm going to get a contract. Well, it doesn't always work that way. We have competitive bids. We're trying to keep the pricing as low as possible. So we open up bid packages. We reach out to subcontractors and say, here, we're going to do a drywall package. It's about $1 million. Well, if you haven't done a drywall package that's $1 million, the most you've ever done is a $100,000 contract, it's going to be hard for you to adapt. So we try to find ways to partner firms that have some experience with those that don't, to give everyone an opportunity. And so leveling that expectation is a ongoing wouldn't say challenge, but an ongoing opportunity for us to get folks involved. So I will share the screen here. I don't think I tested that, James. Let's see here. I'm the old guy in the room. We can't share a screen.
Hey, all right. So now we see you.
Where's the? Did you give me access or go ahead here?
Yeah, if you jiggle, you should be able to move around and find. If you hit the share content button, it should allow you to find whatever screen you want to share.
There we go. So I'll start off with 1 second here. Start here. So we'll start with just kind of an evolution of the projects here.
We still see you.
Got it.
Okay, there we go.
Is that up now?
Yep. Okay, now we see some drone footage.
Okay, so what we've got, I'm just going to kind of walk you through the progression of the construction, because again, Cody talked a lot about the club's aspect of why they picked this site, and my expertise is more in physical start to finish day-to-day operations. So kind of give you an evolution here of that flow. So this is the first aerial footage we have. This is from May of 2019. So we're coming up on just about a year ago from when this photo was taken. This is looking south towards Taft High School. Taft is over here at the top of the screen. This is the Cincinnati Ballet parking lot. We'll use that as a reference point because that doesn't move throughout the course here. But you'll see we've got, this is the old Central Avenue. We started to take some land. We cleared out some of those businesses that Cody showed the photos of earlier. And you'll see these drill rigs. So what we're starting here is our auger cast pile installation. So I won't bore you too much because you guys aren't civil engineering folks, but it excites me. There's different foundation types, and our foundation type, based on where we are, is an auger cast pile. So we drill down 300 feet with drill rigs and pump those. As we bring the drill out, we pump that full of grout, and we've got about 1,400 of those auger cast piles on site. And that creates the foundation for the building. An auger cast pile, the reason I bring it up is unique because it's not just downforce, it also provides resistance on uplift. And based on different points in where the stadium loading is, there are some areas where those auger cast piles provide resistance from uplift, which is I'm civil engineering, so that excites me, but I'll leave it at that. So you can see here we're getting started on the auger cast piles, and you'll start to see some other things happening over here. This is the rebar cages that go down in those foundations. We're bringing those in. That's some contractor mobilization. And now we move on to the next month, and you see a little bit more space. Now we've started to spread out. Here's Taft High School again, Cincinnati Ballet parking lot. You'll see here that we've got our trailers mobilized. Our fence now extends all the way over to John Street. This is about the time when we moved from the concession. This is the old Starville Stadium concession stand. That was our job office that we moved up here to the construction trailers. And you can see these two concrete trucks, and these two are pulling out. So every time we drill one of those holes, we've got two concrete trucks that back in and unload. So you'll see over the next few pictures a consistent flow of really what looks like not a lot of work to be going on, but in reality is a tremendous amount of work going on with these 1,400, 300-foot auger cast piles going in the ground. So again, same thing. This is the next month. Now we're moving into July. You start to see the same thing. You've got these cranes move around, but you can kind of start to see a little bit here of the footprint of the building. I see an outline just to a certain extent. of the stadium here, and that's what I'm outlining with my cursor. But again, still, you think for a long time people kept saying, "Hey, what's going on down there? They're not doing anything. They're not moving." While this is going on, we are in the process of purchasing, bidding out concrete foundations, steel fabrication. We're getting our shop drawings lined up, finalized for steel, and we start to go into fabrication of steel at this point. We have 4 plants across the southeast that are producing over 10,400 tons of steel for the project, which is that's a stat that FC can boast about. It's one of the heaviest stadiums in MLS. 10,500 tons of steel and that's coming from 4 different steel plants across the southeast. So that's what's going on when this work you're seeing or not seeing is progressing. So now we move into August and you start to see some additional work. So now on top of each one of those cluster of piles, so there's 3 to 5 piles in a cluster, spaced about 2 foot apart. On top of each one of those clusters is a pile cap. So what you see here is a square section of concrete that sits on top of those undercast piles and is tied together with the other foundations in what we call a grade beam. So these are all tied together to hold everything together. And this now starts to be the foundation for the stadium that is anchored by those undercast piles. So this is, you'll start to see flow around the stadium with, here we're on the west side. This is the press tower. We started over here because that has the most work for us, interior. Cody talked about a lot of those private suites and clubs. A lot of that resides on the west tower, and that's a lot of work for us to complete, so we start on that side. Here's the beginnings of a smaller crew getting going on the east side of the stadium. This is there is another club over there, East Club, but a little less work. But we're getting started in 2 directions. And again, you can start to see these are the rebar cages that go into the foundations that we're laying. Right now, again, this is month to month. These pictures are taken out on the first of every month. So here's the next sequence. We start to roll into. We've come across the west towards the south west corner. Those foundations are in, and now we're getting backfilled behind it. So all that dirt gets backfilled, and those foundations are buried. We start to turn the corner, and you can really see what we outlined before. So underneath Central Avenue here, which is this stripe, we have a 138 kVA or kilovolt power line, and you'll see we'll come up to that with foundations right here, and then we'll jump over because that span has to remain clear. We can't put any foundations on top of that line. Now, again, I noted DC United actually kind of came in the southeast corner, turned to 45, and then went out this way. So the whole east side of their stadium, very interesting construction. It feels like you're outside because really they had to maintain quite a bit of access. We were able just to leave access over the top of that line. So there'll be a bleacher section in the finished stadium that you'll know when you come next year that underneath there you'll be able to say, hey, power line. Anyway, so again, you start to see more activity on the east, and I think at this point we are pretty well finished up with our overcast piles. We did have a change in the northeast corner, which is where the team store goes. So this is the last overcast piles we put in. So there's that drill rig finishing up in the northeast corner once we got the information on that team store, which Cody noted would be the largest in MLS. Okay, so now you start to see, again, more foundations, and you start to see clusters of activity down here. This is what's going to be the east parking garage. There's a parking garage that you'll start to see take shape here. That's underneath those stairs that we talked about earlier. But you see foundations turning the corner and then moving across the north side. And as we get into the way we've sequenced everything is what we're doing the construction in 2 halves. We're starting in the northwest corner and working this way with one crew, We're starting over here in the southeast corner, working north to west with another crew. So that's how we're able to sequence, and you'll see that over the next few slides. Okay, so now you'll see we can see more of those foundations are finished up. You can start to see activity on the east garage where we're getting our overcast piles and foundations started over here. But as far as the stadium construction itself, we've got slab on grade, which is basically the first floor of our stadium on the west tower. That's all placed in this photo and is moving. We've got a vapor barrier underneath that slab on grade, but that continues around, and you'll see that'll continue around in the next couple of slides. But then you'll see on the pitch, we're getting the pitch ready for our steel erection, and what that means is we when you bring in a bunch of steel trucks and bring in a bunch of material and equipment into an area and continue to drive on it, you got to prep it to be able to hold that weight and withstand the constant wear and tear from the weather. So we put about 2 feet of gravel down over across the entire pitch, and then we spent about $500,000 bringing in these crane mats, which you're starting to see here. So these crane mats will line the outside of the pitch. We have 2 300-ton cranes that can lift 600,000 pounds apiece. That'll be in here in the next photo, I believe. So that those crane mats give that crane a nice safe working surface to disperse the load across. When you think about it, people always ask, how can things cost that much? How can it be this expensive? You're looking at probably about, when it's all said and done, probably about $750,000 worth of work just to erect the stadium from the pitch. That's all going to be thrown away. It's all part of the cost of construction, but you'll never see it. You'll never appreciate that all that work went in just to build the thing. So one of the things that people always ask, it's like, well, there's a lot that needs to go in when you're talking about these kind of weights, these kind of cranes, and this kind of work. $750,000 that you're putting in, and then you're paying to take out so that you can put brass in. It's all necessary to make it happen. Now you start to get, so this is a first picture in December. This is a first picture where we start to see steel come in. So we started our steel erection on December. It was actually just before December 2nd. I think our first piece of steel went in November 27th, the day after Thanksgiving. But here you can start to see that steel erection going. More slab on grade has continued around the south and getting started up the east. Okay, here's that first crawler crane we talked about, and you can see now there's the outline of that crane where we talked about. We put that in and then put a layer of gravel to tighten it up. But there's that crane road for that crane to crawl all the way around the stadium. And then you can start to see more and more steel delivered. This is a receiving bay where our steel trucks would pull in, back up, and unload it so that the guys could be, you have a working platform to get onto the truck to rig it with rigging so the crane can pick it off. But you see all the steel. This will continue over the next couple slides. You'll see more and more steel in here as we go forward. But then, I don't know if I mentioned here in the east garage, we start to see some foundation walls in the east garage. And we're coming up on that side. I think this next photo probably is one of the most impactful from month to month. So this is December, and then we go to January 1st. And now you really see the structure starting to take shape. You've got our lower bowl. So this level right here is the concourse level. And I think you saw that in the cross sections that Cody showed. So you've got the structural steel coming across, our deck's going down. This deck will be poured with concrete to give the frame its structure, its rigidity. But then you see all that additional steel down here that we're continuing to work around. You see more slab on grade. These areas we couldn't get the slab on grade before the weather got bad, so we put a temporary slab down there to be able to work off of so our guys weren't in the mud. And then on the east side, you see how much none of the steel was here. In the last picture, now you've got that whole east side of the stadium coming on. now we move to February 1st. You see more of the structure now on the north, the tournament corner on the southeast, and these blankets indicate that this slab metal deck, the concrete has been placed, so this is starting to shore up as a frame, as a rigid structure. Same thing here. This is our first concrete placement on the west side, level 3. That's what those blankets are keeping that concrete warm while it sets up. And then now you move into the sheet of this one. Yeah, so then this is the 1st of March. This was taken today. Cody and I were in Green Bay. You can see now you start to get the precast riser insulation. So this is where the seats will be bolted to. You can see that pretty good here on the east. Now we've got 2 plants working on producing the precast risers, one in Omaha, one in Indianapolis. And then you can continue to see the concourse concrete coming along with steel deck is set. Now, as of today, as of last week, the entire concourse is placed all the way around, so you can walk a 360 loop around the stadium on that concourse level as of last Friday. And then I will move this down. So here's the live webcam of where we are today. With those. Is that showing? Just shake your head, James. It's not showing? Okay. We'll share screen. If I share my screen, so share the photos. So now you see where we are today. So the rest of that upper steel is coming on. Here's the west tower now from where we were a month ago. We started to come up. This is the top floor of where we're going to be. So this will be the press box level, and then 2 levels of suites on level 5 and level 4. And then here's that concourse coming all the way around. So that's kind of an overview of the construction and where we've evolved. So that's kind of where we've evolved, where we've been, and where we're headed. I think that really was what I wanted to hit on, kind of just walk through and show you guys the physical construction of it, where we've gone over the past 12 months, and show you that in about 12 months how much work we have to finish and where we're headed. What you don't see in here, we are getting going with some of the interior trades. With rough in of mechanical, electrical, and plumbing backbone and infrastructure on the 1st and 2nd floor on both sides of the stadium. So that kind of is just an overview of what I wanted to share. I think we probably can jump into some of the questions, Cody, or are any questions? Feel free to bring those in.
Sure. Yeah, I figured out how to do how to look at the chat, so I'll start hitting on some of them. So the first one was...
I will note, Cody, this is the first time that I haven't seen you in a Dapper Dan suit, so working from home has got you changing your process a little bit.
Yeah, I'm suit and tie every day, so I wish I had $1 for every time someone's told me that before another shoot. So the first one was, how do we select Turner Construction to lead the project? We'll set them apart. So Turner, as Dave mentioned, also did DC United. They've also done several other stadiums, not only within MLS, but also here in Market. Most notably, Paul Brown Stadium down on the banks, and also had some involvement at Great American. So they have a large field office here. Dave didn't touch on, but they're also doing work in Columbus Crew. So they have a very good team here in Market, which was really important for us, especially given so much of what we do is about doing for Cincinnati. Not only their national experience, but also their local experience was what was the real competitive advantage for Turner. The next one was the stadiums for the Reds and the Bengals seem to have a lot of taxpayer money from the county for their agreements. How did that impact FC Cincinnati's ability to negotiate with the city and the county? The impact was enormous. Kind of the age, not only in Cincinnati, but nationally, the age of publicly funded stadiums is really over. And the Cincinnati deal on the banks, for better or for worse, is often noted as a real poster child of enormous amount of public debt in order to fund stadiums. And so while nationally there is a reputation of really going towards privately financed, most recent MLS stadiums have also been privately financed in Minnesota and Los Angeles. There's hypersensitivity here locally, and so we really knew that going in. So while we are getting assistance from the city, it's public infrastructure, county for parking, we knew that the stadium is always going to be privately financed, and that's not only because of the national scene, but again locally. So it did have a big impact. But that deal not only impacts us, but it impacts nationwide. Next one is for the CBA was seen as a community bill of rights that seemed to push the deal over the top towards success. How will everyone keep everyone accountable to uphold their sides of the agreement? That is true. That certainly was a huge tailwind that made the site possible. In terms of being held accountable, we certainly have it is a legal document, so we have that. But morally and ethically, our owners are putting their reputation on the line, and so for the most part, it's about doing what we say we're going to do, maintaining a reputation and doing the right things for the community. And so there's certainly legal possibilities as well, but most notably, it's because it's the right thing. And as a civic organization, it's what we want to fulfill. We agreed to what we want to fulfill and what we want to do for the community. So ultimately, it's going to be about being accountable to our partners, to our neighbors. This is for both Dave and I. What model did you do or did you utilize in terms of ideas for the stadium building design? I skipped one. Sorry. If everything in the CBA works out, it could become a roadmap or case study for sports organizations and cities work together in the future across the nation. Would you agree or disagree? I would definitely agree because it's actually already happened. Nashville model had a similar CBA with the fairgrounds in their situation, specific to the MLS organization. And then Austin has also had a similar experience. So I definitely think it will be replicated around the country, not only with us, but also perhaps in other sports organizations. Our CBA was modeled off a model in California, which is really where this has been prevalent. So yeah, I definitely would agree that it's going to set a precedent around the country because to a certain extent it already has. All right, so then next was for Dave and I in terms of what model we utilized in terms of ideas for stadium build design. I'll start the two ones we looked at the most. So we did go to 7 stadiums right after the MLS award in May of 2018. We went on a big learning tour to Atlanta and Orlando and LA and Minnesota, San Jose, DC. The two we looked at the most were LAFC and Minnesota United. LAFC is the best stadium in the league, in my opinion. And they did a really good job of paying attention to the details, keeping everything on brand, but it's not overt LAFC, but it has subtle touches of gold in their brand. It has a complete consumer experience while also meeting the monetary goals. So I would say that internally we look at them as really the benchmark, along with Minnesota United, who have really done a really good job as kind of this new era of MLS Stadium. I'll let Dave answer that.
Yeah, we I'll kind of tie it a little bit with the next question: is how is it working with Populous? Since you all don't deal with sports stadiums day in and day out, what unique challenges and opportunities does this project provide? So, I think Cody said it. Our approach to the stadium was to provide a local team with tying it also with national experience. So we have folks that are showcasing here with us from DC United Project. Our superintendent staff has vast stadium experience. Our two superintendents have worked on the Broncos, Paul Brown Stadium, Philadelphia Eagles, Arrowhead, lots of different stadium projects. So they bring that experience, and we supplement that with some of the local folks that have local market knowledge and know how the construction locally works. So that's kind of how we tie it. Populous has been. We actually worked with Populous on the DC United Stadium. They were the architect there as well, and they've done a great job of getting things caught up to where staying out in front of the hot items that we can keep moving. You noted that when they came on, it was a little bit behind the eight ball, but they've organized pretty well to be able to keep feeding us information enough to keep us moving. And now we think we're turning the corner to where we're going to be full steam ahead. We're full steam ahead, but we're past a lot of the drawing issues that we had early on when they first got on board. So we did take our folks that did not have stadium experience. We had some meetings with some project teams. We sent a group out to DC to kind of sit with that staff and talk about lessons learned and what to look for and different things there. Some of the folks that maybe didn't have a stadium experience. And then we've got a group in Columbus that is working on the cruise, so we stay in touch with them and work through those challenges as well. But really, the design side comes from Cody's group and Populous kind of working together to come up with the design ideas and how they want to proceed forward.
All right, and then the last one we had was any thought given to naming rights for the stadium? The answer is yes, an enormous amount of thought has been given, and that's something that we're currently focused on internally at FC Cincinnati. It's a big kind of revenue lever, especially talking about how 95% of revenue in MLS is locally driven. Stadium naming rights is a huge part of that. So that's something that we're very focused on. Part of why we decided to do the Fen, because that provides a potential partner at an enormous amount of value and a real landmark. So we are agnostic to where leads come from. So if anybody has any leads or ideas, we certainly welcome. So I think that was all the questions. So I'll for anything else.
I was going to say, that was all the legitimate ones. I threw the one, naming rights messing up those ribs.
It will not mess up. It will not mess up the Fens. They will hold signage. So
okay.
That will be maintained.
It's almost like we jumped on this conference call sooner, because I just had that discussion with some folks earlier this morning about that, because we are with those fins. Like, we looked at them last month. We just got drawings, the final drawings last night, and that was the last piece of how it was going to tie and what provisions need to be made. But we think we're okay. They'll hang on the outside of the fins, and the fins will lit, and no issue there.
Good deal, because I'd hate somebody pay up millions and millions of dollars and their letters fall off.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Cincinnati sign that was giving everybody grief there for a couple months earlier in the season.
Yep.
All right, well, I think that wraps up everything. Thank you so much. I think we learned a lot, certainly from the organizational side, and I learned about right down the other cast tiles. I learned a lot going down 3 feet. That's certainly something that, as the average sports spectator, when you're sitting in the stands, you take it for granted that your team's not going to move. And so that's about the thought that goes into those sorts of things. And so I appreciate you going that, because I learned a great deal about that. And then about the 3 lines of him at 38 years old, wondering how the age of OTR would really impact structure with him, kind of what you're doing on all the different things that you have to work around, because it's not, it's not like Arrowhead out in Kansas City where you're building in a cornfield. Nothing around it. You're building upon stuff that you may or may not know that's there on a piece of drawings. It may be accurate, it may not be accurate. So you never know until you start digging, kind of what you run into. And so when we put our field in at UMK, we found a car buried. And so it's all these different sorts of stuff that you run into with asbestos and just all these different things construction-wise that you never run into. I just want to know I'll brag, Kansas City, we used to visit them a lot. In my other class when I taught at UMKC, and so a couple of guys their spouses were at UMKC, and so we got to go. And have you been to their headquarters there in Kansas City, Dave?
I have not. I've worked with them on this project and then an offshoot on the previous project, but no, I've not been to their office.
Tell them to bring you out there, visit their offices, and tell them to take you to Jack Stack Barbecue.
Okay.
All right.
How's that compare to like that's Kansas City barbecue? That's not Ribs King type stuff.
No, it's Jack Stack's upscale. They have really good carrot cake, but their stuff is good, and it's literally right down the street from there. And so it's one of the good things that I lost weight when I left Kansas City because I'm not eating barbecue every day. Cody, you got Dan Lally there, right?
You do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know him personally, but we have a mutual friend with Coach Sharp. He told me to track him down once he gets established. Coach Sharp is with the Greater Kansas City Sport Commission, so he told me he also hired me basically with men's basketball. So we haven't just let him know that there's a mutual connection. I may be stalking him to come on and come into class next time.
Got it. Yeah. Dan will be running the stadium once we get it up. That is the stadium gym. So
yeah, I think he worked with Chris Reich out at Sporting Kansas City. Yeah, looking forward to that. All right, well, thank you so much for visiting with us, taking time out of your day. Hopefully we didn't get you too far off schedule. And Cody, you're not wearing a suit and tie. I have not worn a sweater vest in 3 weeks. So I feel you. Can't wait to get back to you.
yeah, can't wait.
All right, take care, guys. Class, real quick before we hang out, just make sure you visit the module. I'll get everything uploaded for next week over the weekend, but feel free to shoot me an email if you have any questions, okay? Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.